I'm living my best life. Yeah, yeah. I'm living my best life. Made a couple M's, you know. I said, I'm living my best life. I said, I'm living my best life.
Welcome, friends, to Kiki's Keys to Unlocking Your Best Life, where we are sharing stories of people who have been through their worst and are now living their best to give hope and inspiration to others. Please be advised, though, that some of our content may have information of traumatic nature and could be disturbing to some listeners, so listener discretion is advised. But for those who are with us, we are glad that you are, because as I said, we are sharing stories of people who've been through their worst, now living their best to give hope and inspiration to others. And when I think of that, the first person that comes to mind here in Tucson in our community is Miss Caroline Scott of the Patch Boys. So welcome, Caroline, my guest today.
Thank you so much, Kiki. It's awesome being here.
Well, I'm so glad to have you. And I think of who's living their best, and I see Patch Boys and your business representation, whether it's you, David, or Jennifer that works for you. You're all over the community, always giving to our organizations, our nonprofits, working real close with We Care Tucson and other wonderful nonprofits. So grateful for what you do in the community. So it really warms my heart you're here today.
Me too. I'm absolutely excited.
So you and David married?
Yes.
And own the Patch Boys. How long have you been involved with the Patch Boys?
We have owned the Patch Boys for 2 years now.
2 years, okay. Yeah. And how did you come to that decision to start that business for yourself?
We're serial entrepreneurs, so that's kind of what we do. We open businesses, we build them up, and then we sell, and we move on to the next adventure.
Okay. And then the reason why you and I really connected is we kind of have similar upbringing stories. Even though we are business owners now and we say we're living our best life now, it didn't always start that way. Is that right for you?
Absolutely correct.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about where you grew up and what that was like.
Well, I grew up in Massachusetts with my mom and dad and my sister. It wasn't easy growing up. It was hard for us growing up.
Okay, yeah. I know we talked a little bit often, and we don't want to go too much into it, but there are a lot of abuse and lack of support there.
Yes.
And so you had shared with me that you were on your own at a very young age. Mm-hmm. How old were you?
I was 15 when I was thrown out. You
were thrown out, so didn't have that support system whatsoever.
Nope.
Where did you go from there?
From there, I stayed on benches in parks. Okay. I would stay with friends, family members. I would stay with some of my family members. My grandmother especially, she was a saint. She took me when she could, and she did anything
wonderful.
to help me. I miss her.
Oh, I have that grandma too.
Yeah.
Still back in Minnesota, still with us, 89 years old and going strong. But yeah, I get that. And how some family members try to be there for us, but can't always be there 100%. Right. Yeah. So do you feel that your upbringing and that difficult start in your life, does that add to why you do what you do?
For me, it adds to caring and giving back. That's what it adds to.
And what does that look like to you?
Oh, getting involved with the community any way I can, especially for younger kids. Mm-hmm. Because I went through what I went through, I have a very soft spot for children. So I'm now a cherub with the Angels for Children.
Oh,
and I
wow.
get to give back. I've always teamed up with TC3, Tucson Collaborative Care.
Okay.
They are responsible for decreasing 911 calls as far as people who are financially not secure or homeless or have mental health issues. They really help out a lot. And they come across these families that occasionally need the Christmas presents because their families can't give them the Christmas.
Right.
So that was huge for me to be able to do that with them. I've worked with so many charities, Diaper Bank, We Care Tucson, whole bunch.
That's awesome. And you can do that because of running your own business
Yes.
and entrepreneurship. So let's talk a little bit how you got involved in being a business owner, because it started before the Patch Boys.
Yes.
What was your first business venture?
Our first business venture was Bio One, was a crime scene trauma cleanup company.
Okay. And what was some of your lessons you learned from starting out as a business owner?
Oh, gosh. I learned so much when I first started out. I didn't know anything about business when I started out. So I learned everything, marketing, networking, back office stuff. I had to learn everything from scratch.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you do that? Did you use online resources, or did you have a mentor, someone to walk you through it?
I had Dave and I had Jennifer.
And for those who know Jennifer Dodson, she's quite the remarkable
She's amazing.
representation of the Patch Boys. She's out there marketing and networking on your guys' behalf. And I know anyone who's listening to this who's in the networking world knows her.
Yep.
Yeah, she is pretty remarkable.
She's amazing.
So you kind of surround yourself with other people that you know can be successful.
Yes.
Awesome. And what was one of your biggest surprises as a business owner?
That I can actually do it. That was a huge surprise for me because I always looked down on myself. I never thought I was worth anything or that I could do it or I could learn.
Yeah?
Yeah,
So you had a lot of self-doubt.
I did a ton.
Was there a self-sabotager in there?
Yes, there is. There
Yes.
was. Not anymore.
How did you go from doubting yourself to not having a self-sabotager anymore? That sounds freeing.
It is. I really had to pick myself up. I was in a very low place. I had to pick myself up. I knew, I had an idea that there was something much better out there than what I was experiencing. So I had to take that and try and convince myself and learn that, yes, this is possible. I can do this.
You know, I hear what you're saying, and it sounds simple. But that's
it's not.
really hard to do.
It is.
What were some of your challenges to get over?
Oh, gosh. Self-doubt. The homelessness, I had a lot to get over. I had been through some other childhood trauma. It was really hard. So I had to push through it. I had to find a way. I knew it wasn't normal.
Did you push forward away from the trauma, or did you have to spend some time in that trauma first?
Unfortunately, I unpacked my bags and stayed there for many years.
I get that.
And I was so tired. And it felt like unpacking, getting an apartment or a house, unpacking all your stuff and having to repack everything the next day and get up and move to the next place. And you did
Right
that
on.
every
Yeah.
day. And it was so tiring and so exhausting. So at some point, I met Dave. Dave came along and he said, listen, this is okay. This is not normal. But to be happy is okay. To get through these challenges, it's okay. You need to know what it feels like on the other side. And I'm glad I did the work, and I'm glad I had the support and help when he came around.
I know for myself, especially growing up in a very abusive childhood, trusting not only myself, but trusting someone else's opinion about myself when I think I'm so low.
Yep.
To believe, my ex, we're not together, but we're still really great friends. He's been my biggest cheerleader
Right.
for my entire life. And
That's
I
awesome.
honor and cherish that. Even though we're not together, I still, have to say I give a lot of credit to him for who I am as a
Right.
person. But I didn't believe him when he
Correct.
first said, I love you. I didn't believe him when he said that I was even lovable. That took a lot of work. Did you struggle with that as well?
I did. I really struggled with it. I didn't trust anybody. I didn't even trust myself. I didn't trust him. It took me a very long time, but I would slowly watch David's actions and I would kind of like absorb it and learn from him, try and learn from him because I didn't know any different. So but I eventually got there.
Yeah. It's just a lot of continuing to just trust that it will work with
Right.
time and not listen to your own self-doubt.
Right.
Yeah, and that does take a lot of practice.
It does.
I know for myself, I worked with a life coach, and that really helped me name and identify my self-saboteur and be able to call it out when that voice pops up in my head. Does that voice still ever pop up for you?
I still get negative thoughts, but I do talk myself out of it. I know I'm better than those negative thoughts. Those negative thoughts are not who I am at the end of the day. I was different in my past. I'm a better person today for it.
Yeah. And I can see that. That's phenomenal. Just before we go to break then, I'm going to just say thank you to our sponsors, and we are going to thank them, give them some time on air for their ads. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about what that means now for Caroline in living her best life. So we'll be back after this. And we are back. This is Kiki Rogers with Kiki's Keys to Unlocking Your Best Life, sharing stories. I'm getting tongue-tied today. Sharing stories of people who have been through their worst, now living their best, to give hope and inspiration to others. And we are here with Caroline Scott. She's a serial entrepreneur here in Tucson, owner of the Patch Boys with her husband David, and just a wonderful representation and giver in our community here in Tucson. Welcome back, Caroline.
Thank you so much.
So we were talking a lot about how growing up in not the most ideal scenario really plants that negative voice in our minds, and how we have to work through that to find our best selves. So now here you are, you're in your third business.
Yes.
Very successful at running your business, very successful services. I recommend you guys all the time, and
I appreciate that.
everyone absolutely loves you and your team, and we're glad you're here. But let's talk about that. What does that mean to you about living your best life?
Living my best life means living in harmony, living peaceful, not having anxiety, not having stressors of my past. Just being able to be vulnerable and honest. For me, that's really how I've gotten where I am.
That's really great. Now, you said not having stressors, not having anxiety, but life is full of stressors. Life is full of moments that can bring that anxiety to the surface in each of us. So tell us a little bit about your process when that happens for you and how you work through that for others to hear.
Gosh, when I have anxiety, I take that step back. I do things for me. Because with the anxiety for me comes the depression, and it's hard. So I try to do nice things for myself to help myself feel better. I distract myself, I exercise, I go out with the dogs. I do what I need to do, but I take time for me, and I pamper myself. I do, with different things. So that helps me. I come up with a gratuity list. I'm grateful for everything that I'm grateful. I have a lot to be grateful for in this world. So that helps me with my anxiety. It puts me in a better place, in a better mood. I do something called tapping. Which it's like you tap certain areas like your eyebrows and stuff in different areas, and it helps reduce that anxiety and that stress.
And that methodology comes from a therapeutic practice called EMDR.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So again, we share these stories of people here on the show because we do want to give inspiration to others. But do keep in mind, guests, that if you are experiencing anxiety, depression, do seek out medical care. Absolutely. Whether it be from your primary physician or a counselor, or even just starting with a life coach can help direct you into, do I need therapy, or is this something that we can work on through coaching? But you don't have to go through that alone.
No.
But these are really great tips for when we are seeking out the medical care we need, or have gone through that, and we need to be reminded of how to stay in touch with our emotions and grounded.
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer in therapy. I'm a firm believer in, bettering yourself and wanting to feel better.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's awesome. And your mother as well. We haven't talked about that very much.
No.
But we were before the show talking about our kids are similar ages.
Yes.
How do you represent that for your child and give them that role model of how to self-care and address these issues?
I really have to work hard with Elizabeth to teach her those issues. I have to get her to stay calm. I have to get her to listen. But she does. She gets it. But she's also in that place where, she thinks it's goofy. She thinks it's, because she's 16. But I always put forth my best foot. I no matter what.
That is so inspiring. That's amazing. So let's talk about Patch Boys.
Yes.
What are you excited about with Patch Boys? What's coming up on the horizon?
Oh, I'm sure we have some events, different events coming up that we're supporting. I'm just trying to think of them all. There's just so many. We have golf tournaments coming up. We support, again, different charities. We have a pickleball tournament. We have a couple golf tournaments, I believe, coming up. So that's kind of what we have going on.
And of course, this is not a paid sponsorship bid.
No.
Caroline is here just as my guest, folks. But do tell people a little bit more about what Patch Boys does and how they can get a hold of you if they do want to do business with you.
Absolutely. We do everything from drywall repair to popcorn ceilings to your kid driving through the wall of your garage because they're brand new drivers, that kind of thing.
Okay.
My daughter did that over for the weekend, and I got a call from her father.
My mother and I were just talking about my aunt back in the late 60s, drove the family Volkswagen, or not Volkswagen, what am I thinking of? The wagon, those old wagons, like Ford Tauruses.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
those.
With the big back seat with the
Yep.
hump over the wheel that we sat on as
Yeah,
kids.
I remember those.
Yeah. No seat belts, no
Right.
airbags. But she drove one right in that front window of their home back in Fridley, Minnesota. So it happens to a lot of people. That's why we have insurance.
Absolutely. You can absolutely find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Our number is 520-339-6800. If you want to give us a call, we'd love to come out and do an estimate for you.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for getting your information out there for our listeners to hear. We have just a few more minutes to go. So what are some things that you like to do? You said you like to do some self-care. So what are some of your favorite hobbies or self-care activities?
You know, I like to go for a trail ride. I love horses. I go trail riding. I go swimming. I go to the spa.
Do you have horses then, or
No,
do you
we
go
just
to a ranch?
We go to a ranch. We're horse people. I used to, when I was younger, my grandmother, when she could, would take me touring around the country, and I would ride and do
that's
different
so
shows.
fun.
Yeah, so it's something fun for me.
Yeah. Now, are you able to take the horses out in this extreme heat right now, or are they resting?
They're resting. I wouldn't
Okay.
recommend it in this heat. I would go at like 6, 7 a.m. or later in night when the sun goes down.
I had the pleasure when my best friend was visiting here from Minnesota back in September. We stayed at the White Stallion Ranch, and
Okay.
they had horseback riding
Yes.
through the desert with the scenery and the they called Jacob trees, or
Yes.
they kind of look like Dr. Seuss trees in
Yes,
my
they do.
opinion. I think Dr. Seuss was in Arizona when he was planning out like
That's very
Whoville.
possible.
But it was just such an amazing opportunity, not only to see our beautiful landscape in Tucson, but also to have that connection with that animal.
Right,
Because you're so dependent
beautiful.
upon them at that moment.
right.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite horse then, or do you use different ones?
I use different ones.
Yeah.
So,
And then you go swimming.
yep.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I love it.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was doing this morning too.
Yep.
Oh, that's really cool. Well, I am so glad that you're here. How did you come to move to Tucson? When was that?
We moved out here in 2018.
Oh, not that long ago.
No,
then.
so we've been here a few years. We came out here to take care of David's parents
I see.
because they're older and they were
He's
declining.
originally from this area then, or they?
No, they moved out here 25 plus years ago.
Okay. That
So,
makes sense.
We came out, they were declining, and we came out here to help them out.
Did you think it was just going to be temporary at that point?
No, I loved it. I fell in
You knew
love.
right away?
I first visited out here and met them, and I fell in love
Yeah.
with Tucson. And I said, I'm going to live out here one day. And believe me, when we got home, I pushed David. I want to move to Tucson.
Yeah. Did it take a lot of convincing for him?
Within, I think, maybe 6 months after that, we moved out here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. And what do you love most about Tucson then?
the people.
Yeah.
The people are amazing. They're phenomenal.
There's an authenticity, I think, about Tucson.
There is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know I'm talking a lot about Tucson, and we're trying for the show to go syndicated. So for my new areas that are listening to the show, do know that I am not just stuck in Tucson, but this is where we are right now, and got to give us some credit because that was my turnaround story too. For those who may not know, we had lost our 17-year-old son in 2019 back in Minnesota, and then moved down here 2 years later as just kind of a last resort.
Right.
Need a change, see what happens, because life was not going the way we wanted it to.
Right.
We were really stuck in our grief, and visited a lot of areas in Arizona because we were first living in Laughlin, and used that time to kind of shop around.
Right.
People said, go to Tucson, go to Tucson. I go, it's going to be hotter. It's so further down. It's going to get hotter. No, go to Tucson. Came here in June of 2022, moved here July 4th.
Nice.
We were convinced immediately.
Right.
And I agree. It's the people. The people are really authentic, down to earth.
They are.
Yeah.
I definitely love the people here.
And you do quite a bit of networking and meeting new people through your business.
Yes.
What are all the different networking groups you're involved with?
Goodness. Let's see. Tucson Business Networking. We're involved with the Marana Chamber or Tucson Chamber. We are members of the BBB. There's so many that we belong to. But we make them all. We try and make them all.
I know for myself, even though I'm a very outgoing people person, coming with those anxieties that are deep down in, sometimes being in those large groups can bring that to the surface for me.
Yeah.
Have you continued to work on those things as you continue to branch out with your business, or just you finding it gets easier and easier?
It gets easier and easier.
The more you do it?
The more you do it and the more you're in front of people, it does get easier.
Yeah. So if someone were in a position right now, whether it could be, just trying to get over a difficult stressor or trying to completely turn their life around like you did, what advice would you give to that person?
Don't give up. Don't give up. Seek help. Please seek help. I don't care who it is. Just seek help. You're not alone. Nobody's ever alone.
You're absolutely right. There are people who are out there who have been through whatever areas you're going through. There's someone who's been through it and survived it, and you can too.
Absolutely.
We have survived our worst days, and we are going to have worse coming forward, and we'll survive those too.
Absolutely.
Well, I am so glad I'm not alone, and I'm here with you today, and thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. It's been amazing.
Caroline, you're awesome. Again, that's Caroline Scott with the Patch Boys, and your website again is... Or Google the Patch Boys, THEPATCH, Boys, BOYS. Just go ahead and Google that, Tucson. They'll pull right up. And thank you for having you got me tongue-tied now. We're down to 20 seconds and I'm screwing up. Here's the music. Thank you, Tom. Have a great day, guys.